This is the EVELO Quest. It's a relatively lightweight folding electric bike that's unique in the sense that it has a Gates carbon belt drive with CDX. That's the line down the middle that keeps it on track. Belt drives are clean, they're quiet, it's tight, you don't have to worry about a derailleur getting bent or anything. You do have the motor power supply cable coming out the side, but that's not uncommon for hub motor driven electric bikes like this. And the frame is similar to the Oyama, EG, Motive, but again, none of those have the belt drive. And this one only weighs 41.1 pounds, which is relatively lightweight. The battery inside is 4.1 pounds. It is removable, so you can charge it on or off the bike. And the motor power you're getting here is 250 watts nominal with a peak at 540 watts, 45 Newton meters of torque. That's not too bad at all. You've got relatively wide tires here, so this is 20 by 2.125. You can see they've got that reflective sidewall stripe, which is great. These are mechanical 160 millimeter disc brakes, getting decent stopping power. You might think, oh, 160, I've heard about 180 and really big brakes, but you gotta remember that the wheel diameter on these is relatively small, so you're getting a mechanical advantage, not just through the brakes, but also for that motor. So you're thinking like, oh, the motor looks relatively compact and small. Well, that's good. Kind of hides behind the disc brake rotor on the left-hand side, and it's lightweight, and that's something you really want, or at least that I really appreciate when I'm dealing with a folding bike that I might be putting into an RV or a boat or just taking upstairs, putting in the garage. Again, the battery weight, 4.1 pounds. Taking it out doesn't do too much in terms of lightening up the bike, but it's still a possibility. And that's something I think about a little bit. Quick release on the front wheel, not on the rear. You've just got standard kind of nuts on that rear axle, as you'd expect. And that's another thing, EVELO has these cool kind of upgrade packages for security, which has these, it's like hardware that you can put on here, pinhead hardware that thieves and stuff can't really get to quite as easily as that quick release. Now, comfort is something I was getting at a minute ago with the bigger tires. You don't have a suspension fork here, but of course that adds weight and it takes some of the stiffness and handling out. So there's a compromise here. If you don't want to take this thing too much off-road, but I noticed that the fenders handled okay when I was just riding over the grass and stuff. They weren't shaking around a whole lot and making a lot of noise. If you wanted to try to go for comfort, I guess these padded grips help. They're stitched, they're padded. And that saddle, I actually really like it. It acted a little bit more like a spring saddle, even though it's not. It doesn't have the rubber bumpers. I'm frequently talking about like seat post suspensions, things that you can replace that seat post with. But on a folding bike like this, a lot of times that's not an option. This is 33.9 millimeter diameter, 580 millimeters long versus 300 or 350 on most bikes, okay? So first of all, you'd need a shim. You'd end up with a seat post suspension and you just wouldn't get the same pedal extension. So I think, I would get this bike and kind of stick with it the way it is, but just keep that in mind. One of the other things that I really like about it is that it does have integrated lights. So we have a blaze light back here. This is the RL 1900. Integrated, meaning it runs off that main battery pack. You don't have to worry about charging it separately. Same thing with the front. This one's from Spaningo, which is a higher end brand. It's Galeo. Got a big reflector on it, reflectors on the pedals and everything. These pedals, it's kind of what you expect with folding bikes. They're plastic, they're not as rigid. And the folding design isn't my favorite. You kind of have to put your fingers on the edge and push in like this. There's another design that seems to work a little bit better for me that has like a little internal cup. There are metal pedals that fold. This is something you replace. It gets the job done. They just aren't as grippy or stiff, so some of the pedaling and stuff can feel a little bit off. But of course, they're folding, makes the bike compact. Big sprocket on the front. Remember when I was talking about the wheel diameter giving you a mechanical advantage for the motor and the braking? Well, there's also sort of this like change in how you pedal because it's going to rotate more quickly for the same distance that a bigger wheel would. So they sort of offset that by having a really big chain ring. And it's, for me, this bike has been comfortable riding at about 15 miles per hour. My cadence feels a little bit more relaxed. Getting started was a little bit difficult at times because there are no gears. There's just that single speed. So it's light, it's reliable, it's quiet. But thankfully, you have a throttle over here. So, you can press that trigger throttle and get yourself some help at any time. Some of the other EVELO models, I was looking at the Galaxy yesterday. They struggled a little bit for me because it was like you had to get to 6 miles per hour before the throttle would kick in. This one kicks in right away. And here's my buddy Alex. How you doing, man?
Doing pretty well. How are you guys?
This has been a fun bike to look at. It's great because it's portable, it's relatively lightweight, 41.1 pounds.
Yep.
I mean, that's awesome. And I was just getting up to kind of the display. There's even a USB port at the bottom right there, full size, so you can plug in your phone and use it for GPS. Because a lot of times when I'm traveling, I don't, I'm bringing maybe a folding bike, but I don't know the neighborhood. And so I'm using my phone, but then I'm draining my phone and I don't want to get lost. And so I love that feature on this bike. And I was just talking about the throttle. The throttle seems to work even at zero, and it gives you a good amount of power. I think it's full power on this one.
Yeah, definitely, especially since it does have a bit of a taller gear. That's what gets you your top speed. It is a single speed, so utilizing that throttle is a really great way to get started.
Yeah, it's a great setup. I really like that. And even this bell, it comes with this flick bell here.
Yep.
Well positioned, easy to reach these controls. I really want to fold one of these maybe before we get into the display. Would you help me out with this one over here? Appreciate it. And this is the other color. What do you call this one? Do you remember? It's kind of like this red, kind of a classic EVELO red.
It's a crimson.
Crimson red. Love it. And then the gray here, it's got a metallic sheen. I really like that. Okay, so what's the first step?
So I'll walk you through the whole process here.
Thanks.
First thing you're going to want to do is put that kickstand up.
Oh, okay.
Just like that. And then my personal technique, you want to make sure that the left pedal is facing forward.
And I like the way you did that. So he squeezed from the outside. I was kind of...
Yeah, no, there's definitely a little technique involved. After you do it 100 times, it'll be second nature.
I mean, you're a pro. Yeah, you've been doing this for a while.
I've been folding bikes for quite some time. So after we get those pedals folded, we're going to drop the seat all the way down.
Okay, look at that. Do you want to tell? So this protects the chainring.
This protects the chainring. This is also what the bike is going to rest on once it's folded.
Okay.
So the next step is actually we're going to flip up this release lever right here.
It's for safety, right?
Yep, so that's a safety, and then you're going to pull this outward.
And this is adjustable, so over time, if this gets a little loose, you can kind of adjust it and make that
correct. And that's one of the idiosyncrasies with any folding bicycle. You do not need to make sure that this hinge has a nice snap to it. If it gets loose, let us know. It's pretty simple to adjust. We want to make sure that that stays nice and tight.
Yeah, and I want to stop for a second here. One of the things that really sets EVELO apart, and I'm not just saying this because Alex is here, but he's being helpful to me. They're actually one of the more helpful companies in general. I frequently get feedback that the customer support's really good. You order this online, they ship it out. They've got a great warranty. It's 2 years, kind of comprehensive, but 20,000 miles in like 4 years for the frame, the motor, the display, like all the other stuff except the battery.
Yeah, so the battery's covered under a 2-year policy, and then after that is a sliding scale replacement.
Oh, that's right, because you replace the batteries too.
Right, so realistically, if you need a battery in 3 years, we're not going to leave you hanging. We're not going to charge you full price. We're happy to work with you, and our main goal is really to keep our customers riding as far as they want to ride. So when you need a battery, when the time comes, we're definitely have things in stock, and we're happy to help.
Thank you. Okay, continue on.
Alrighty, sure. So now we're ready to fold the whole bike in half here. So we're going to make sure that's open, and then I'm actually just going to fold the bike completely in half.
Nice.
Like that. Some bikes you actually have to twist the, you have to twist the wheel. This one's actually just really simple. Literally just fold the whole thing in half.
Making it look easy, man.
Yeah, and then the bike, this ground's a little unlevel here, but the bike will support itself on that seat post there.
Excellent.
And then the next step, there's another little safety collar here. We're going to rotate this.
Yeah.
We're going to flip this outward, and then the handlebars go all the way down.
Awesome. So it kind of protects the display in there too.
Yeah, and then if you need a more compact fold, you can loosen this and kind of flatten the levers out a little bit. But generally, this is great for transportation. So once the bike is like this, you're able to pick it up and put it in your trunk, and basically put it wherever you'd like.
And so I was noticing the contact points here. There's this rubber cap. The kickstand kind of butts up against the edge of the metal. It looks pretty secure.
It's tight, and some other folding bikes will actually have like a little magnetic latch there.
Yeah.
We intentionally didn't do that simply because they kind of fall apart. So is this the kind of bike you want to fold and carry on the train every day? Probably not. It's perfect for putting in the RV, putting in your trunk, really just basic transportation and storage.
And I have seen people with like Velcro straps, or that sometimes, depending on the situation, they'll even take an old t-shirt and tie the back together, or just put it, so it doesn't rattle as much.
Like even like just a basic ratchet strap, or Walmart has these like little strips, like a slip tie, some nylon straps.
That's right.
Like that. So if you need it to be compact, if it's getting bounced around a little bit, using one of those straps is a pretty good idea.
Okay, and then this is the other really cool feature. The battery is internalized in the frame, so you don't see it. It really blends in along with the smaller motor.
Yeah, you betcha. And I'll show you on this bike over here how to pull that out.
Let's do that. Yeah, and the battery on this bike, it's kind of accessible. There's an on-off switch right here, so you can completely power it down so that, you know, this area up here won't get bumped, someone won't tamper with it. There's another USB charging port here, and of course just the main power port. Your charger is like 2 amps, relatively lightweight and compact, so you could put that in a trunk bag or panniers. So he's doing the fold thing again. Get to see it in real time. Yeah.
Get that latch.
I'm gonna hold this.
All right, cool. Let me grab the keys real quick. We're really excited about the way that this battery comes out, because, I mean, you're not going to really remove it all that often, but when you need to.
Okay, and I want to,
right
what he did there, he put the key in, he turned it halfway, and then the key actually helped him pull the battery out. There's also like kind of a finger, you could try to grab like this, but I found that using the key is the easiest.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, you know, especially there's all sorts of different riders there. So if I unlock this and try to get my fingers in here, it can be a little snug. So I like to unlock it, turn that key halfway, and then just use that as leverage.
That's great.
Pull that out. So because it is in there nice and snug, we don't want that to rattle around.
I love this battery. Yeah, and rattling, that's a good point. So as I was saying, the fenders and everything sounded pretty good. Just super compact, but I would say average size, 36 volt, 10.2 amp hours. You know, it used to be a lot of electric bikes were 36 volt, 10 amp hours, and that was kind of standard. And some of the folding bikes were less than that. So now you've got like, you know, pretty good size on a folding bike. That's going to give you a decent range. Depends on how you ride. Are you going up a lot of hills? Are you dealing with the throttle a lot, or are you using those 5 levels of pedal assist, that kind of thing? Yeah, it's good stuff, man. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, guys, I brought us over to a shadier place because I wanted to show the display panel. It's really nice. It's color, it's backlit. You can see it says EVELO, and I'm actually going to try to angle this down a little bit. Look at that, so we can reduce the glare. We've got speed, battery, 5 bars, and percentage, so it's much more precise. I love that they did that. Assist levels, you can go all the way down to 0, and then this is just like a speedometer, or lights. So if I hold the plus button here for a couple seconds, see how it turned to a darker background? So that's a lot less distracting at night. It's not gonna like kind of glare in your eyes. And then here's the lights, just give you a close-up. Nice LED headlight, that's that Spinninga. In the back here, got the blaze light, big reflective surface, and the reflective sidewall stripes on those tires and thicker 13 gauge spokes. I mean, you know, they really built this up. The smaller diameter wheels tend to be sturdier anyway. There's those fenders again. The rack, it's got a little pannier blocker, which is cool because when you fold down the pannier on these bags that they sell, it's just the right size, you know? Some panniers hang down really, really low, and then they start to interfere with your disc brakes or, you know, drag against the tires. The bag that they sell, I think you were saying it's like 69 bucks, right?
69.
There we go. Zipping that up, and this is also reflective. This is what the rack looks like without a bag. It's got the little spring latch, 25 kilogram max weight. That's about 55 pounds, so it's quite capable. And the kickstand, you know, this has the same thing I complain about sometimes where you pedal backwards or even walk the bike backwards and it can kind of collide like that. You know, trying to mount the kickstand back here with the disc brake and everything, it doesn't look like there was space. But keep that in mind, because otherwise you have to lift the bike up and pedal forward for a few seconds. So we were talking about the display. Let's get back up here. We've got the assist at 0, but we can arrow it all the way up to 5. And in any of the 1 through 5 levels, that motor works with the throttle. So I really love that. Like, here, I'm gonna... There we go. Full power. So this is great for getting started, especially since this is a single speed, you know, and it's geared a little higher. I noticed that they also have a motor disconnect here, so that if you're, you know, having to do some service on that rear wheel, it's nice to be able to disconnect that. It's a 10 magnet sensor, so, you know, that's pretty high resolution. Sometimes they're like 5 or 6, and then it does go up to 12. So, you know, 10 is decent. It does, because you pedal a little bit slower, I noticed it doesn't connect and kick on quite as quickly, or compared to like the EVELO Galaxy models, which have a torque sensor and a cadence sensor. This is a little bit more basic, and that's where the throttle really shines. It's just getting started. For me, that throttle is such a win, and I'm a little bit more comfortable with it on the right like this versus, you know, on the left. So I feel like the whole setup is good. The buttons are easy enough to reach while riding. If you want to, you can even go into the settings of this display by double tapping that power button, and we've got, you know, metric or imperial, brightness, auto off, 5 minutes right now. Digital scene, you can even change the scene. That's kind of cool. Wheel diameter 20 inches. Awesome. So I'm going to exit that. See the power in watts, so you can get a feel for how much power the bike is using versus how much you're contributing. And of course, using pedal assist and contributing yourself is going to take you further. Hub motors aren't quite as efficient as mid drives, but the great thing is they don't interfere with the drive system at all, and they're a little bit cheaper. So balance wise, it's like relatively lightweight motor, battery is forward, the bike handles pretty well that way. It feels stable. And then clock down here. So I think that's kind of it. I'm going to go ahead and pedal this forward for a second so I can get that kickstand up. There we go. And then I'm also going to demonstrate these, it's like a motor inhibitor on these brake levers. So if you've ever got the brake squeezed and you hit the throttle or anything, nothing's gonna happen. So that's a good safety. But if you get on this bike and you're carrying it or something and you bump that throttle, you know, it could start to take off on you, right? So just be careful with that throttle. That's always something on a throttle powered bike where you do get power. You just wanna, it's a little bit of an extra, like, stay aware. So here we go. I'm gonna get myself moving a little bit. Seems like there's a little bit of a cutoff. There we go. Starts up. Got a little hill over here, so I'm gonna go really slow and then gun it. And we made it. No problem. I mean, I'm not the heaviest guy, but you have those smaller diameter wheels, they get that mechanical advantage. You know, it's real. It works out pretty well. I did notice there was a little bit of a start and stop, kind of like it took a minute to start, so maybe that's the safety thing. I'm doing it again right here. I had to hold the throttle for just a second, and then it activates, kicks in, and here we go. Whew. I'm gonna take it across the grass too, just to do sound. You might have heard a little bit of shaking, and that's just the bag. And the bag actually has the charger, so I wanted to show you that too. Let's do the kickstand here. Unzip it. We've got our 2-amp charger that I was talking about. Relatively lightweight. We've even got an EVELO lock, so it's a chain lock. That's something they sell separately. It's a pretty good setup overall. There we go. You want to do a flyby?
Sure, you betcha.
Oh yeah. There he goes. It's a sweet bike, like it does the job, but there's that single speed. It just takes a minute more to kind of get up to the comfortable speed for me. And there's a trade-off. You don't want to be beating eggs, but you also don't want to be like super slow. And I think the most comfortable speed for me was like 15 miles per hour. So maybe I'll meet you out in the street. Let's go down one of these streets.
Yeah, sure. I think this one's really nice and quiet right here.
Let's do it. Okay, so I'm gonna follow Alex. Lead on, buddy. He goes. Well, and you know, it kicks on. I just got the cadence sensor. I'm in level 5 and it's like, whoa, that's a lot of power. I would probably turn it down or ride with 2 hands instead of just 1. Pretty bumpy street. 1 hand with that mechanical disc brake. Doing pretty well. You know, the price point on this bike is $19.99, so we're just under that $2,000. And now I'm climbing a really steep hill. I'm not having to push very hard. And we're doing it. You know, it's working. Sweet. Okay, where to next? Maybe up there? That'll be quiet. We can just chat for a minute.
Yeah, sure. Let's go.
There's hands-free riding. Not bad. You know, sometimes these 20-inch wheels are a little bit more squirrely, but they also give you excellent turning radius. So yeah, to me, the takeaway here is that you get power when you need it because of the throttle. A little bit slower to start with that cadence sensor, but it's certainly not the worst. And then you get that quiet, lightweight feel because it's a single speed with the belt drive. And people sometimes ask me like, well, how long do these hold up? This is a Gates carbon belt drive. It's a lot like the timing belt in an engine of a car. It's gonna last for a long, long time. It's gonna stay clean. I think it's a pretty good setup that way. I do wanna say, be careful about the wire coming out the back. just, you know, if the bike tips or if that gets snagged, you don't want to damage that because it can kind of wreck the motor. We've got those full-length 170mm crank arms. We've got an extra tall seat post. So this could really be dialed in for a whole range of people. And there's even a telescoping stem, so you could bring it down really low or raise it up. It's designed to be like that one-size-fits-all, right? Feels relatively comfortable. I think that's about it, Alex. I appreciate you taking me out. It's great to see both of the different colors. For the full write-up on this, I'll see you guys back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Of course, have fun out there. Ride safe.
See you guys.